Mexican drug war is one of the most significant ongoing conflicts in the world today. It began in 2006 and continues to shape the lives of millions across Mexico and beyond. This war is not a traditional battle between countries, but rather a complex struggle involving the Mexican government, powerful drug cartels, and various armed groups. The roots of the conflict run deep, touching on issues of poverty, corruption, and the global demand for illegal drugs. Over the years, the war has evolved, with shifting strategies, changing leadership, and devastating consequences for communities. In this video, we'll explore the origins, major players, and far-reaching impacts of the Mexican drug war, providing a comprehensive look at how this conflict has unfolded and why it remains unresolved. Mexican drug war is not confined to a single region. It spans the entire country, with hotspots in states like Michoacán, Sinaloa, Chihuahua, and Tamaulipas. Violence often spills over into neighboring countries and even the United States, especially in border states such as Texas, Arizona, and California. The conflict also affects Central and South American nations, as drug routes shift and criminal organizations seek new territory. This widespread violence disrupts daily life, causes mass displacement, and challenges the ability of governments to maintain order. Understanding the geography of the war helps explain why it is so difficult to contain and why its effects are felt far beyond Mexico's borders. Understand the drug war, we need to look at the origins of Mexico's powerful cartels. The roots go back to the 1980s, when former police agent Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo founded the Guadalajara cartel. This group controlled most of the illegal drug trade in Mexico and established key trafficking corridors into the United States. Over time, the cartel splintered, giving rise to rival organizations like the Sinaloa, Tijuana, Juarez, and Gulf Cartel. These groups built vast criminal empires, often with the help of corrupt officials and by exploiting poverty and weak law enforcement. The arrest of major leaders led to further fragmentation, fueling competition and violence as new factions fought for control. Mexican government has played a central role in the drug war, launching major military and police operations to dismantle cartels. In 2006, President Felipe Calderón declared war on the cartels, deploying tens of thousands of troops and federal police. This approach, known as the Kingpin strategy, focused on capturing or killing cartel leaders. While some high-profile arrests were made, this often led to power vacuums and increased violence as rival groups fought for dominance. Successive administrations have promised new strategies, but militarized tactics and corruption within law enforcement have persisted, making it difficult to achieve lasting peace. Sinaloa cartel is one of the most powerful and enduring criminal organizations in Mexico. Founded by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael Almeo Zambada, the cartel has dominated drug trafficking routes along the Pacific coast and into the United States. Known for its sophisticated operations and alliances, the Sinaloa cartel has survived leadership changes, internal splits, and intense government pressure. Its influence extends internationally, and its battles with rival groups have contributed to some of the most violent episodes in the drug war. Even after the arrest of El Chapo, the cartel remains a major force, adapting to new challenges and maintaining its grip on key territories. Los Zetas began as the armed wing of the Gulf Cartel, composed of former elite soldiers who brought military tactics to organized crime. It quickly became infamous for their brutality, targeting not only rivals but also civilians, migrants, and journalists. In 2010, Los Zetas split from the Gulf Cartel, igniting a violent turf war across northeastern Mexico. Their operations expanded beyond drug trafficking to include kidnapping, extortion, and oil theft. Over time, internal conflicts and government crackdowns weakened Los Zetas, leading to fragmentation into smaller, competing factions. Despite this, their legacy of violence continues to impact many regions. Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, is a relatively new but rapidly growing force in Mexico's criminal landscape. Led by Nemesio Oscar Cervantes, known as El Mencho, CJNG emerged from the remnants of the Malneo cartel and quickly expanded its territory. The group is notorious for its aggressive tactics, use of propaganda, and willingness to confront both rivals and government forces. CJNG has become a key player in the ongoing violence, challenging the dominance of older cartels and seeking control over lucrative drug routes. Its rise has led to new alliances and conflicts, further complicating the drug war. Beyond the major players, several other cartels have shaped the course of the drug war. The Tijuana cartel, once dominant along the U.S. border, has been weakened by internal strife and government pressure but still operates in key areas. The Juarez cartel, controlling routes through Ciudad Juarez, has faced fierce competition from the Sinaloa cartel. The Gulf cartel, after losing its armed wing Los Zetas, has struggled with internal divisions and external threats. New groups like the Knights Templar and La Familia Michoacana have also emerged, often splintering from older organizations and contributing to ongoing violence. The landscape of Mexican organized crime is constantly shifting, with alliances forming and dissolving as cartels seek to expand their influence. Groups may join forces to fight common enemies or break apart due to leadership disputes. These shifting loyalties often lead to sudden outbreaks of violence, as former allies become bitter rivals. For example, the split between the Gulf cartel and Los Zetas triggered years of bloody conflict. Similarly, infighting within the Sinaloa cartel has led to new factions and turf wars. Understanding these dynamics is key to grasping why the drug war remains so volatile. Since 2006, the Mexican government has relied heavily on the military to combat drug cartels. Soldiers have been deployed across the country, often taking on policing roles in areas where local law enforcement is weak or corrupt. While this approach has led to some successes, it has also drawn criticism for human rights abuses, including extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. The presence of the military in civilian life has changed the relationship between citizens and the state, sometimes creating fear and mistrust. Despite promises to reduce the military's role, successive governments have continued to rely on this strategy. Corruption within law enforcement is a major obstacle in the fight against drug cartels. Many police officers from local to federal levels have been implicated in working with criminal organizations, accepting bribes, or even participating in cartel activities. Efforts to reform the police have included mass firings, new training programs, and the creation of elite units. However, these measures often struggle to address deep-rooted problems such as low pay, lack of oversight, and threats from powerful cartels. As a result, impunity remains high and trust in law enforcement is low among many communities. The United States plays a significant role in the Mexican drug war, both as a consumer of illegal drugs and as a partner in security efforts. U.S. demand for narcotics fuels the cartel's profits, while American-made firearms often end up in the hands of criminals in Mexico. Initiatives like the Merit Initiative have provided funding, training, and intelligence to Mexican authorities. However, critics argue that U.S. gun laws and border policies have contributed to the problem. The relationship between the two countries is complex, involving cooperation, tension, and shared responsibility for addressing the crisis. Effects of the Mexican drug war are not limited to Mexico and the United States. Cartel operations extend into Central America, South America, and even Europe and West Africa. Drug trafficking routes shift in response to law enforcement pressure, leading to violence and instability in new regions. In countries like Guatemala and Honduras, cartels exploit weak institutions and corruption to establish safe haven. International law enforcement agencies work together to disrupt these networks, but the global nature of the trade makes it difficult to eliminate. The war's reach highlights the need for coordinated international solutions. Drug war has had a profound impact on Mexico's economy. Violence and insecurity increase costs for businesses, disrupt supply chains, and deter investment. Small and medium-sized enterprises often face extortion from criminal groups, while multinational corporations may delay or cancel projects due to security risks. The government spends billions on military and police operations, diverting resources from other essential services. For many communities, the lack of economic opportunities makes involvement in the drug trade an attractive, if dangerous, option. Addressing the economic roots of the conflict is essential for long-term peace. One of the most devastating effects of the drug war is the displacement of people from their homes. As violence erupts in towns and cities, families are forced to flee, seeking safety elsewhere in Mexico or across international borders. Some communities have become ghost towns, abandoned due to threats from cartels or military operations. Displacement disrupts lives, separates families, and creates new challenges for host communities. The trauma of losing one's home and the uncertainty of the future add to the suffering caused by the conflict. Human cost of the Mexican drug war is staggering. Since 2006, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, including cartel members, police, soldiers, and civilians. In addition to the dead, tens of thousands are missing, their fates unknown. Many families continue to search for loved ones, forming groups known as Madres Buscadoras or Searching Mothers. Mass graves are discovered regularly, providing grim evidence of the scale of the violence. The loss and uncertainty faced by these families is a lasting scar on Mexican society. Men have been deeply affected by the drug war, both as victims and as participants. Many women have lost family members to violence or disappearance, while others have been targeted for kidnapping, sexual violence, or forced involvement in criminal activities. Some women have become leaders in the search for justice, organizing protests and searches for the missing. Others have joined cartels or self-defense groups, taking on roles traditionally held by men. The war has also contributed to a rise in femicides and gender-based violence, highlighting the need for greater protection and support for women. Children are among the most vulnerable in the drug war. Many have lost parents or siblings to violence, while others are forced to flee their homes or drop out of school. In some areas, schools have closed due to threats or attacks, depriving children of education and stability. Cartels sometimes recruit or coerce young people into criminal activities, exploiting their lack of opportunities. The long-term effects on a generation growing up amid violence and insecurity are profound, making investment in education and youth programs a critical part of any solution. Journalists covering the Mexican drug war face extreme danger. Many have been threatened, kidnapped, or killed for reporting on cartel activities or government corruption. Some media outlets have stopped covering crime altogether, while others have been infiltrated by criminal groups. As a result, much of the violence goes unreported, and citizens turn to anonymous blogs or social media for information. The targeting of journalists undermines freedom of the press and makes it harder for the public to understand what is happening in their communities. Cartels use sophisticated propaganda to shape public opinion, intimidate rivals, and recruit new members. This includes social media campaigns, music videos, banners, and even food handouts in local communities. Some groups promote themselves as protectors or righteous organizations, while others use fear to maintain control. The spread of narcoculture in music, fashion, and language blurs the lines between criminal identity and popular culture. These tactics make it harder for authorities to counter the cartel's influence and for communities to resist their power. In response to cartel violence and weak law enforcement, some communities have formed self-defense groups known as auto defenses. These groups arm themselves to protect their towns from criminal organizations, sometimes with government support. However, the line between self-defense and vigilantism can blur, and some groups have been infiltrated by cartels or become involved in criminal activities themselves. The rise of paramilitaries reflects both the desperation of communities and the challenges of restoring order in areas where the state is absent. Availability of powerful firearms has fueled the intensity of the drug war. Most weapons used by cartels are smuggled from the United States, taking advantage of lax gun laws and weak border controls. Assault rifles, grenade launchers, and even military-grade equipment are common in cartel arsenals. Efforts to curb arms trafficking include joint operations and tracking programs, but the sheer volume of weapons makes enforcement difficult. The flow of guns not only empowers cartels but also increases the risks faced by police, soldiers, and civilians. Mexican cartels control major drug supply chains, moving cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana from South America through Mexico and into the United States and beyond. These routes shift constantly in response to law enforcement pressure, leading to new hotspots of violence. Cartels also diversify their activities, engaging in human trafficking, oil theft, and illegal mining to supplement their income. The complexity and adaptability of these supply chains make it difficult for authorities to disrupt the flow of drugs and profits. Poverty and inequality are key drivers of the drug war. Many people join cartels or become involved in the drug trade out of economic necessity, lacking access to education, stable jobs, or social services. In some regions, the illegal economy provides more opportunities than the formal sector. Addressing these root causes is essential for reducing the appeal of organized crime and building safer communities. Social programs, investment in education, and job creation are all part of the long-term solution. Low levels of education make young people especially vulnerable to recruitment by cartels. In areas where schools are underfunded or unsafe, children may drop out early and seek work in the informal or illegal economy. Cartels often target youth, offering money, status, or protection in exchange for loyalty. Improving access to quality education and creating safe environments for learning are critical steps in breaking the cycle of violence and giving young people alternatives to crime. Drug war has led to widespread human rights abuses, including torture, arbitrary detention, and extrajudicial killings. Both state forces and criminal groups have been implicated in violations, often with little accountability. Vulnerable groups such as indigenous communities, migrants, and sex workers face particular risks. International organizations and local activists continue to document abuses and push for reforms, but progress is slow. Restoring trust in institutions and ensuring justice for victims remain major challenges. Conflict has serious public health consequences. Increased drug use, especially in border regions, has led to higher rates of addiction, HIV, and other diseases. Violence and displacement disrupt access to healthcare, while fear and stigma prevent many from seeking help. The trauma of living in conflict zones affects mental health, with long-term impacts on individuals and communities. Addressing public health needs is an important part of recovery and rebuilding. Migrants traveling through Mexico face extreme risks from both cartels and corrupt officials. Many are kidnapped, extorted, or forced to work for criminal groups. Massacres of migrants have shocked the world, highlighting the vulnerability of those seeking a better life. Cartels exploit migration routes for human trafficking and other crimes, while government efforts to protect migrants often fall short. The plight of migrants is a stark reminder of the broader humanitarian crisis caused by the drug war. Drug war has been marked by shocking acts of violence, including massacres, mass graves, and public displays of brutality. Cartels use terror as a tool to intimidate rivals, control territory, and send messages to authorities. Civilians are often caught in the crossfire, with entire communities traumatized by attacks. These atrocities have drawn international condemnation and calls for greater protection of human rights, but bringing perpetrators to justice remains difficult. Politicians, especially at the local level, are frequent targets in the drug war. Cartels seek to control governments by assassinating mayors, police chiefs, and candidates who oppose them or refuse to cooperate. The threat of violence undermines democracy, discourages honest officials from serving, and allows criminal groups to expand their influence. The 2018 general elections were the deadliest on record, with over 130 politicians killed nationwide. Protecting public servants is essential for restoring trust and effective governance. Cartels rely on sophisticated money laundering schemes to hide their profits and fund operations. This includes using banks, real estate, and legitimate businesses to move and invest illicit funds. Major international banks have been implicated in laundering cartel money, sometimes facing hefty fines. The financial power of cartels allows them to corrupt officials, buy weapons, and expand their reach. Efforts to combat money laundering are ongoing, but the global nature of finance makes enforcement challenging. Beyond violence, cartels exert influence through corruption and political alliances. They may fund campaigns, bribe officials, or infiltrate government agencies to protect their interests. This narcopolitics undermines the rule of law and makes it harder to distinguish between legitimate authority and criminal power. High-profile cases, such as the conviction of former Security Minister Genaro Garcia Luna, reveal the extent of cartel infiltration. Tackling political corruption is a key step in weakening organized crime. Over the years, various reforms have been proposed to end the drug war. These include police and judicial reforms, anti-corruption measures, and changes to drug policy, such as decriminalization of marijuana. Some leaders have emphasized social programs and poverty reduction, while others focus on law enforcement and military action. Progress is often slow, and setbacks are common, but ongoing efforts reflect a recognition that lasting peace requires more than just force. Debates over drug policy are central to discussions about the future of the drug war. Some argue that decriminalizing or legalizing certain drugs could reduce cartel profits and violence. Others worry about public health and social consequences. In recent years, Mexico has taken steps to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana and offer amnesty to nonviolent offenders. However, most cartel revenue now comes from synthetic drugs and other illicit activities, so the impact of legalization may be limited. In recent years, Mexican cartels have become major suppliers of fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid responsible for a surge in overdose deaths in the United States. Fentanyl is cheap to produce and easy to smuggle, making it highly profitable for criminal organizations. The opioid crisis has intensified calls for new approaches to drug policy and cross-border cooperation. Efforts to disrupt fentanyl production and trafficking are ongoing, but the scale of the problem presents significant challenges for both countries. Cartels have adapted to new technologies, using encrypted messaging, drones, and social media to coordinate operations and evade law enforcement. Drones are used for surveillance, smuggling, and even attacks, while online platforms help recruit members and spread propaganda. Law enforcement agencies are also adopting new tools, but the rapid pace of technological change makes it a constant race. The digital dimension of the drug war adds new layers of complexity to an already challenging conflict. Combating the drug war requires international cooperation. Mexico works with the United States, Central and South American countries, and global organizations to share intelligence, conduct joint operations, and address the root causes of crime. Efforts include border security, anti-money laundering initiatives, and programs to reduce drug demand. While cooperation has achieved some successes, differences in policy and priorities can create tension. Building trust and aligning strategies are essential for making progress against transnational crime. Non-governmental organizations, religious groups, and community leaders play a vital role in responding to the humanitarian crisis caused by the drug war. They provide support to victims, advocate for human rights, and work to rebuild social fabric in affected areas. Search groups, shelters for migrants, and mental health services are just some examples of grassroots efforts. These organizations often operate in dangerous conditions, filling gaps left by the state and offering hope to those caught in the conflict. Drug war has left a mark on Mexican culture, inspiring music, films, literature, and art. Narcocorridos, or ballads about drug traffickers, are popular in some regions, while TV shows and movies dramatize cartel life. This cultural phenomenon, known as narcoculture, reflects both fascination and fear. It can glamorize criminal lifestyles but also serves as a form of social commentary and resistance. The spread of narcoculture raises questions about identity, values, and the power of storytelling in times of crisis. Drug war continues to evolve, with new groups emerging, alliances shifting, and violence flaring in unexpected places. Recent years have seen the rise of the CJNG, increased use of technology, and growing international connections. Political changes, such as new administrations in Mexico and the United States, bring shifts in strategy but no easy solutions. The conflict remains dynamic, requiring constant adaptation from both authorities and community. Staying informed about these trends is essential for understanding where the war may go next. Achieving peace in Mexico is a complex challenge. Deep-rooted issues like poverty, corruption, and weak institutions make it difficult to dismantle criminal organizations. The sheer scale of violence and the profits at stake mean that cartels are unlikely to disappear overnight. Building trust between citizens and the state, reforming law enforcement, and investing in social programs are all necessary steps. International cooperation and a focus on human rights are also essential. While progress is possible, it will require sustained effort and commitment from all sectors of society. Amid the violence and uncertainty, countless stories of resilience and hope emerge. Families of the missing organize searches and demand justice, journalists continue to report the truth despite threats, and communities come together to rebuild after tragedy. Social workers, teachers, and activists dedicate themselves to creating safer, more just societies. These stories remind us that even in the darkest times, people find ways to resist, adapt, and support one another. Their courage is a testament to the human spirit. Mexican drug war offers important lessons for other countries facing similar challenges. It shows the dangers of relying solely on force, the importance of addressing root causes, and the need for strong, accountable institutions. It also highlights the resilience of communities and the power of collective action. As the world grapples with organized crime, migration, and inequality, the experiences of Mexico provide valuable insights into what works, what doesn't, and what still needs to be done. Looking ahead, the path to peace in Mexico will require a combination of strategies. Strengthening the rule of law, investing in education and economic opportunities, and protecting human rights are all essential. International cooperation must continue, with a focus on reducing drug demand and disrupting financial networks. Most importantly, the voices of those most affected by the conflict, families, communities, and survivors, must be heard and included in the search for solution. While the challenges are great, the determination of the Mexican people offers hope for a better future. Mexican drug war is a complex, ongoing conflict with deep roots and far-reaching consequences. It affects not only Mexico, but the entire region and the world. Understanding its causes, dynamics, and impacts is essential for anyone interested in global security, human rights, and social justice. While there are no easy answers, learning from the past and supporting efforts for reform and peace can help build a safer, more just future for all. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most challenging issues of our time.